Sometimes the best lessons that we learn in life are the ones that we have to learn the hard way. In today's episode, I'm going to share 5 really challenging experiences that I've had in my own business. These are the situations that made me question if I was cut out for this, that made a brief thought pop up in my head that maybe I should quit, right? Whether that was quitting Instagram, quitting my private practice, quitting entrepreneurship, stopping to scale. Everybody kind of has those days where they question, like, can I really keep doing this? But these hard situations ended up being some of the best lessons that I've learned in business. Now, it did not feel easy by any means when I was in it, right? But now I'm on the other side of all of these lessons, and I'm truly grateful for them because they made me a better business owner and a more self assured person outside of work as well. So let's get into it. The first is letting people really see you is scary. So here's an example of the first time that this happened for me. I was featured in an article by Business Insider where the title was How This Virtual Therapist Earned $250,000 her first year in private practice working 30 hours per week. And when I pitched Business Insider for this article, I reached out to them and said, hey, I would love to do a story together. I kind of want to talk about how tech companies have been so damaging for therapists and their career and how private practice is a much better alternative for them. Business Insider said, I don't know exactly about that topic, but let's hop on a call. I'm sure we can work something out. And, we talked a little bit about the tech companies, but they really asked me a lot more questions about how I built my own business, my journey on Instagram, all of that. And, they are a news outlet, so they verify their information. They had me send over all of my income reports, like all of that, like proof that I had actually earned this amount of money. And I did not know that the title of that article was going to be about my finances. And for me, that was very shocking. It was very surprising because I hadn't really shared that with friends, family, or the internet yet. And I really had this choice to make of, am I going to stand in this and like really promote that I was like featured? There's an entire Business Insider article about me and my success. Or was I going to shy away from that because I was unable to control the narrative? At the end of the day, I decided it was going to be a very wise move for me and my business to share that article far and wide, as far and wide as I could. And so I shared it in stories. I made like an Instagram post about it. I think I made some reels about it as well. And the internet was not pleased with me. So I got a lot of comments. Kind of about therapists making money, right? Some people thought that it was a joke. Some people thought it was a scam. Some people thought that it was fake. Some people thought that I was just money hungry. And I was getting all of these really mean comments from people. And it was the first time that I had ever gotten negative comments on Instagram. I had had my therapy page, Sit with Kelly, for about a year at that point. And that was the same page where I was sharing this article because I didn't have my second Instagram account, Business of Therapy, yet. And like letting people see me in my success and also receiving the negative reactions from that at the same time was very disorienting. I was having like panic attacks. I couldn't sleep. I was really, really anxious. And it was hard, right? In real life, um, it was received better than I thought. So people were incredibly proud of me. My parents, my friends, my family, like everybody cheered me on. And honestly, most of my online community did too, right? Like most of the people who actually followed me on Sit with Kelly were very excited for me, right? They were very pumped. They were very congratulatory. But because my post went viral, because this article went viral, a lot of people were kind of discovering me for the first time from this headline. And that's not a lot of information to have about somebody, right? And so they kind of made quick judgments and left really mean comments. And at the end of the day, even though that was a really hard experience for me, it was also really powerful because I was able to learn how important it is to actually talk transparently about money, right? Even though it was very scary, very uncomfortable, very anxiety provoking, I think that it was so helpful for me to be able to push through that and to stand in my truth, to be able to let people see me and my success, to be able to say, I don't think this makes me a therapist or a bad person, and to show myself that I could receive all these negative, nasty comments and still be okay, right? I blocked people, I restricted people, and I didn't allow them to kind of keep fueling the fire. For anyone who's ever had something go viral with negative comments, I think that there tends to be a handful of people who sort of troll and kind of reignite conversations again and again. And I remember that was the case with there was two people who were doing that. And I was like waking my husband up at 2 a.m, like, oh my gosh, they're commenting again. What do I do? And he's like, just block them, like let them stop commenting. So anyways, all that to say, now my top performing content is me sharing transparently about money because I allowed myself to be seen, because I allowed myself to work through this fear, and honestly, because I think I was able to rip the band aid off of the worst case scenario from the very beginning. I was able to have confidence and say, this is a conversation that a lot of therapists need to be having. This is a conversation that the large majority of people are appreciating. And so, now I do my income reports every single month, and they are my top piece of content by far. The lesson here is you really need to let people see you. You need to be willing to say something that is interesting enough, that is black and white enough, that is opinionated enough that you risk upsetting people, right? That is the content that will make the right people feel so, so, so connected to you. It's the content that will make you different than everybody else out there and is going to build a really strong community. So be a little controversial, be a little spicy, right? And know that if you have a negative experience like I did, you can work through it. You can turn off the comments. You can block and restrict people liberally. Your Instagram is your house, and you do not need to invite or allow haters into it. Okay, second tough lesson. You will get paid what you allow yourself to get paid. I'm going to repeat that again. You will get paid what you allow people to pay you. So when I first started seeing therapy clients outside of, like a nonprofit or community mental health, it was at a group practice. And the group practice told me, you're going to get paid $45 per session. And I said, okay, great. And they paid me $45 per session. When I started seeing clients on my own, I did that through insurance panels. They told me, this is how much you're going to get reimbursed per session. And that's exactly how much I got reimbursed per session. When I started to do a little bit of sliding scale in my practice, that's how much I got paid, right? So I slid. I kind of have had a bunch of different ways that I did that. But let me repeat that one more time. You will get paid what you allow people to pay you. So when I first started seeing therapy clients outside of my nonprofit job, I was working evenings in a group practice, and the group practice owner told me, we're going to pay you $45 per session. And I said, sounds great. And I got paid $45 per session. Then I left the group practice and started seeing clients on my own through insurance. They told me, you're going to get paid $125 per session. And I said, sounds great. I'll get paid $125 per session. Then I decided I wanted to see clients private pay, and I made a private pay rate of $150 per session. I had a few people reach out and say, hey, I'd love to work with you, but I can't afford it. Do you offer a sliding scale? I could pay $50 per session. I could pay $85 per session. I could pay $100 per session. And even though I was making more than that with insurance, I wanted private pay because in my mind, that made me a better therapist. And so I said, sure, I'll do a sliding scale. And that's how much I got paid per session. Then I finally got my life in order and I decided, no, I'm going to do this private pay thing right. If I'm going to put in this extra effort marketing myself, I'm going to charge way more than I'm getting paid for insurance. And I'm going to charge $250 per session. And I'm going to hold all my new clients to that rate. And what did I do? I had a full caseload of clients paying me $250 per session. When you as a business owner are the one who sets your rates. You as a business owner determines what you get paid. Yes, it might take you a little bit longer to have the right clients find you who are able to make that work. But if you keep showing up, if you keep marketing yourself, if you keep networking, you are going to get paid what you decide that you will get paid. The same thing has happened with, other things in my business besides one-on-one therapy. So, for example, in June 2023, an electronic health record company reached out to me and they offered me $10,000 for a brand deal. They wanted to fly me out to their headquarters and shoot content for one day together. And that was super cool to me. I was like, you're going to fly me out across the country to your headquarters. You're going to have professional photographers and videographers, which is, I think, very cool, very fun, and I just have to do that content for one day in person, and you're going to pay me $10,000. I was so on board. I was so excited. But then when we got further into the process, I realized that they actually wanted permission to be able to run ads to the content with me in it in perpetuity. So what this means is for the rest of my life. And I didn't want to do that, right? Like I didn't want to be like the face of that electronic health record company. I didn't want to have no control over how they were able to use my image, my likeness forever. I didn't want to restrict myself from other opportunities to work with other electronic health record companies for the rest of my life, right? That was not worth $10,000 to me. But at the time, that would have been the highest paying brand deal I had ever gotten by a lot, right? And so I was going back and forth for a very long time. Should I do this, right? Like it was a very cool opportunity, very good pay. But at the end of the day, I decided to walk away because I couldn't come to agreement with the terms that they were offering me. 2 months later, I signed a brand deal for double that rate. And I've continued to sign brand deals at sort of like that caliber of rate since, which is so wild because if I had accepted the first brand deal, like so many of the other brands that I partner with would have been off the table for me. And it just goes to show that if you are willing to make the uncomfortable choice, if you are willing to say, no, I know what I'm worth. I know what works for me. I know what I want my business to look like. And you are able to stick to that, the world is the limit, right? And it's not to say like that this stuff just magically happens. I've proactively pitched a lot of brand deals. I get a lot of rejections. I get a lot of no answers. And, the ones that I do partner with, I genuinely use, I genuinely love, I nurture them, and they tend to be very long-term relationships. So it does require effort on your part. It requires, putting yourself out there again and again and again. But the lesson here is that I've really been able to make way more money because I knew and accepted that I wanted more. I didn't make myself wrong for wanting more. And I allowed myself to walk away from a short term win, right? I walked away from that short term win of $10,000 because I was certain of the value that I could provide. And I was willing to be uncomfortable with losing out on that opportunity to continue to push for myself and to like hold strong to what I knew I was worth. Third lesson, you have to risk failure to get really big results. So, the first time I launched the Private Practice Academy was in October 2021. It was a year after I had started my Instagram page, and I had 25 people enroll, which was absolutely amazing. The course was less comprehensive at that point, it was about half the price. And I was so, so, so happy with these results. I had maybe 10,000 followers on my Sit with Kelly Instagram page, just a few hundred therapists on my email list. And so I was absolutely blown away by having 25 therapists enroll in my course and ask for my help and trust me to help them grow their Instagram page the very first time that I put this offer out into the world. Now, the second time I launched PPA was 4 months later in February 2022. And I had 8 people enroll, which was still good, right? Like 8 people is amazing. I was still very proud. But the issue is that I had hired a copywriter and I put so many hours of work into that launch. And so with the copywriter and those expenses, I only made $2,000 of profit, which should not feel worth it at all for like literally probably the 100+ hours that I put in to relaunch that program in February 2022. And so I didn't launch again for over a year after that till April 2023, which is pretty wild to think about because now I launch my programs like almost every month or every other month. But I was so scared, right? I was so, so, so scared to launch again and to have it not feel worth it. I'd also been working with lots of therapists in this time. I hadn't done like a big promotional launch, but I was still having lots of therapists enroll into the Private Practice Academy all the time. I had lots of therapists in the Reels membership. I had some high touch one-on-one coaching clients. I had a mastermind. And so I was super afraid of like, what if I fail with this launch? Will people still trust me? Will they still trust that I am good at marketing? Will they still trust that I am capable of helping them to grow their private practice? And so that was something that really held me back from launching again for quite a long time. Anyways, I decided, I'm going to launch again. And I started to plan a few months before April 2023. I went through the entire course, redid so much of it, added like double the amount of material and doubled the price of the course. And on that next launch, I made $40,000, right? Which is wild. I'm going to look it up actually. I had 39 people enroll, which is amazing. And I was so, so, so proud of the results of that launch. The lesson here is that the only way to guarantee that you don't get the results you want is to not go for it, right? If you don't keep trying, there is no way that you will ever get the results that you want. And sometimes it doesn't happen right away, right? Sometimes you launch something and it flops, or you raise your rates and your clients say that they can't make it work, or you put up a new website and nobody visits it. And that's okay, right? You have to continue to show up. You have to continue to tweak, to pivot. And when you do that, your success truly becomes inevitable. Lesson 4, I'm going to tell you about the time that I lost $18,000 on paid ads. So I hired an expensive ad management agency where I was paying them $5,000 a month, and I paid them for 4 months for a total of $20,000. We spent $7,000 on top of that on the actual ads themselves. So $7,000 to Facebook and Instagram to put my sponsored content in front of people. And I made $9,000 in sales of the Private Practice Academy bundle during that time, for a total loss of $18,000. Now, let me kind of give you a little bit more backstory. I was really looking for an easy way to scale. I didn't want to learn anything about ads. I didn't want to do them myself. I didn't want to hire an internal team to do it. I didn't want to supervise anyone on my team doing it. I didn't want to have to make the ads. I didn't want to do anything. And I basically thought that if I hired an ad agency who would do all of that for me, it would be free money in my bank account because I would pay them, they would take care of it all. My course would sell itself in its sleep, and that'd be it. Now, I knew when this ad agency gave me the first round of ads that they were not going to work. The ads that they had created did not feel like me, and they weren't the kind of content that has worked in the past for myself, for my business. It didn't feel authentic. It didn't feel very effective. It felt kind of robotic, but I really wanted to trust this ad agency. They were the experts, right? So maybe in my mind, ads were different than regular Instagram content. And I think the issue is that I just didn't trust myself, right? I didn't trust myself to really push back and say, hey, like this does not sound like me. This does not sound like what I know therapists are wanting. This does not sound like something that would be effective. We need to redo this from scratch. And I was paying them quite a lot of money, right? And so I didn't want to just take the ads back. I didn't want to take control and do whatever was needed to make it work. And so what happened? It didn't work like at all. The lesson here is that you are the person who knows your people best. There is no easy way to make money or to remove yourself from the process of marketing yourself and your business. As the business owner, as the therapist, as the lead person in your brand, you are still going to need to be heavily involved even when you are outsourcing, especially in the beginning of trying something new, right? So it's really, really important that if you are hiring a virtual assistant, if you are hiring an ad agency, if you're hiring a copywriter, that you are expecting in the beginning that you are going to need to give a lot of input, that you are going to need to be heavily involved, that you are going to need to learn and understand what they're doing and partner with them in it. And in time, yes, they will be able to take over stuff from you more fully. But in the beginning, this is your business, right? And so you better be involved and really the one driving the ship. And then the other lesson here, I think, is knowing when to call it and know that something isn't working. And I was really, really proud of myself for doing this. The ad agency had said that it would take like 3 to 4 months to kind of get ads to a place where they were profitable. And so I promised myself before we even started that I would stick it out for 4 months. And, they had kind of said like, maybe things will turn around, like, or feel like the ads are starting to get smarter, things are going to get better. And I just had to walk away and say, this isn't working for me. I'm going to take the lost investment at this point rather than continue to pour more money down the drain, because I knew that it's just not realistic for me, right? That's not to say that ads don't ever work. I help therapists run very low cost $5 a day ads inside the Private Practice Academy bundle. But I think just ads at this scale from the very beginning was not a wise move for me. And so who knows? I've toyed with the idea of experimenting with ads internally, kind of taking like a training for myself or having my virtual assistant take a training and trying ads at a much lower cost, like a few $100s a month, and kind of seeing how that works. But we will see if that is something I try in 2025. I will report back if I do with some additional lessons learned. But for now, I think the lesson is really to expect to be involved when you are outsourcing something and knowing and trusting your gut. Okay. This last one feels probably the hardest to share. Lesson number 5 is all about getting negative feedback from clients. So I have worked with literally thousands of therapists at this point, and I can count the number of times that I've gotten truly negative feedback from therapists in my programs on one hand. And of course, I want the therapists who work with me to give me feedback, right? Even if and when it's negative. I've gotten plenty of very helpful, constructive, negative feedback over the years about how to improve things, how to coach people differently, additional resources that would be helpful. But a handful of times I've gotten feedback from people that was just like, truly 100% negative. Like they said, you didn't help me at all. This program doesn't work for me. I wouldn't recommend you to a friend, that kind of thing. And wow. Oh my gosh. Every single time that this has happened, it has been such an emotional whirlwind for me. I care so deeply about helping the therapists that I work with. And I truly give it my all with everybody, whether that is the Reels membership, the Private Practice Academy, you name it, I'm very invested. I care so deeply about helping the therapists that I work with. And truly, I give it my all for therapists in any of my programs, but especially with my one-on-one coaching clients. I am so invested because I'm really, really in it with them in their business. Like I'm reviewing their emails, I'm reviewing their sales pages, I'm reviewing content. I'm talking to them in Slack almost every day of the week. And what I've seen time and time again and what I've seen the few times that I've gotten negative feedback from people is that they really had an unrealistic expectation of how much work it would take to create and sell a new scalable offer, and had like a negative, unrealistic expectation of what their specific timeline would actually look like. I care so deeply about helping the therapists that I work with, and I truly give it my all with therapists in every single one of my programs. But especially with my one-on-one coaching clients, I get to know them so well, right? Like we're messaging in Slack almost every day. We're meeting multiple times per month. I'm reviewing their content, their emails, their sales pages. Like we are in it together, hand in hand. And I think the thing that I've noticed amongst the few people who share negative feedback with me is that I think they had sort of an unrealistic expectation of how much work it would really take to create and sell a brand new scalable offer, and also had pretty rigid expectations of what their specific timeline would actually look like. And on the flip side, my most successful clients, my happiest clients, have been so clear about the results that they want that they are willing to do whatever it takes to get them, right? even if it means that they're having to work more during a busy season. Even if it means that they try the first time and it doesn't happen, they're willing to try again. Even if it means that they put content out and it flops and they're not getting the signups that they want, they're willing to look at it, to understand why, take their ego out of it, and pivot. Even if it means that things feel hard sometimes, they accept that, right? Because they know that that's just part of entrepreneurship. And so they keep going and they stay in it, right? And they don't take that to mean that they failed as a business owner or I failed them as a coach. And kind of instead have like a more realistic expectation that it can be hard to build something truly exceptional and it can take time, and that I'm committed to being there with them in it for as long as that takes and trying my absolute best to help them get there faster. But that at the end of the day, some of that is outside of my control as a coach, and it's even outside of their control as the entrepreneur, right? And instead, really committing to showing up, refining, doing the work together until we find a way to make it work. And the lesson here, I think, is for me, I had to really be willing to listen and accept that people had a negative experience, right? And I didn't make myself wrong and change everything about what I'm doing when it's working really, really well for 99% of people. The other thing that I learned from this is that I really need to be more open and honest about what it really takes to build a big business and scale. Because I hate seeing therapists in that position where they are making themselves wrong for things feeling hard. Because in a lot of ways, yes, my business does feel easy now, right? Things feel smooth and they feel predictable for the most part. And also, in the same day that I am celebrating some really big wins, stuff will come up that feels really hard for me too, right? That happens all of the time. And that is just part of life. It's part of running a business, it's part of having a job, but it's not something that a lot of people talk about online. And for me, it's always felt kind of hard to share both truths in a place like Instagram, especially because I set goals for myself of like trying to show up and sell every day, trying to help therapists kind of have confidence in me and decide to enroll in my offers, get people to sign up for my free trainings or my free challenges, do brand partnerships. And so it didn't feel like there was a lot of time and space to also talk about the negative stuff, which is sort of how this podcast was born, right? I really wanted to have a place where I could share 30 minutes with you about tough lessons that I've had in my business. So that way you can see when you are in a similar situation that this doesn't mean that you're failing. It doesn't mean that everything's falling apart. It doesn't mean that you're not made for this, right? It means that you're in a tough season. And that's something that happens to everybody, even the most successful therapists that you look up to. The biggest takeaway that I want you to have from this episode is that building a business is hard sometimes, right? Your hard might look different than mine. Like maybe these examples I've shared in this episode don't totally resonate with you or your experiences, but some things that are easy for me might be hard for you, and vice versa. Just because things are hard does not mean that you are doing something wrong. And in fact, what I've learned through a lot of these hard lessons is that it usually means that you are committing to doing something differently. And it's really at that point of uncomfortability, of change, where you are ready to reach your next level. So get the support that you need to work through tough seasons and to keep going, right? Be willing to go through the hard things and stick with it, my friends. Because getting to run your own business, to make six figures or more as a therapist, is pretty freaking incredible. And when you zoom out, outside of the hard lessons, there is so much to be grateful for, even in the hard seasons. So I hope you can spend some time after this episode reflecting on how far you've come and all that you have to be grateful for in your business. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I'm so, so grateful to each of you for listening.